Money Arata. There are a lot of critics who say that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme, or some other type of money-stealing fraud. They are using the FUD strategy. FUD? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, often used to keep people away from Bitcoin and its potential. And that is why we want to clarify each of these FUD arguments today in our Money Arata series. The future is here. It's still just unevenly distributed around the world. There is a lot of fear and uncertainty in many people's minds about Bitcoin. Some people have not even heard of Bitcoin yet. And at the same time, a lot of people have made fortunes. They managed to get away from authoritarian dictatorships and protected their savings by using Bitcoin, participating in the greatest revolution in the history of money. It is still early days. You probably want to be part of the group of early people who will reap the advantages of Bitcoin as well, and that is why today we're going to explain what a Ponzi scheme is once and for all. And we're also going to present the arguments that explain why Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme in order to eliminate this FUD permanently. This is not financial advice. Please read the full disclaimer before proceeding. Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme. Saying otherwise indicates lack of knowledge. Now let's be clear once and for all about whether or not Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. And to do this, well, we need to know what a Ponzi scheme is and what Bitcoin is. Charles Ponzi was an Italian man. He migrated to the United States at the age of 21 following the American dream. And once he was there, he realized that stamp coupons that were used in international correspondence were much more expensive in the US rather than in Europe. So, Ponzi had this idea of buying European stamps, exchanging them for American stamps, and then selling everything in dollars, achieving a 600% net profit. But to do that, he needed money. At first, he tried to get bank loans, however this idea was rejected by all the banks. And then Ponzi presented his idea to friends and colleagues, promising that if they loaned him money, they would get the double of the money back in after 3 months. Sounds great, right? That is how the idea of large profits in a short period of time, very easy, became associated with a Ponzi scheme. By the laws of the market, it is unusual to have high and guaranteed profits. However, the first investors really got their promised amount after 3 months. And then this business opportunity became really famous and the enterprise was growing around 400% in 1 month. The amount of people investing money there was so high that the business expanded over many American states. Then people started to get suspicious of this promise of easy money. There were investigations that discovered that Ponzi never actually invested in stamp coupons because it was too complicated to buy stamps in Europe and then exchange them in American dollars. What he actually did was to use the money of new investors to pay off old investors' loans, keeping part of the profit for himself. This is what is widely known as a Ponzi scheme these days. Now you can imagine the rest of that scheme. People lost money and Charles Ponzi was put into jail and was deported back to Italy. And once he was there, he got a job with an airline and he ended up working in Brazil, where he died penniless at the age of 67 years. Why Bitcoin cannot be defined as a pyramid scheme. A Ponzi scheme is often associated with a pyramid scheme. However, these are two different kinds of fraud. In a Ponzi scheme, the scammer promises a very high investment return in a short period of time in the guise of a new, amazing business opportunity. However, there is actually no such opportunity, there is nothing. And the scammer only uses the money of new investors to pay the older investors. And then finally, when there are no more new investors, the scammer leaves with all the money. In a pyramid scheme, there is actually something, a product to be sold. Could be cosmetics, supplements, or anything similar to that. However, in order to sell that product, new investors need to pay a commission fee to a member who is recruiting them, a higher member who entered the scheme earlier. And when the product gets sold or a new member is recruited, both the new investor and the old investor get a commission. The big difference between a Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme is that with a Ponzi scheme, there is a clear fraudulent intention from the very beginning, and there is no investment whatsoever. In a pyramid scheme, at least there is a product to sell, and the people who enter the pyramid are kind of aware that they will only earn money if they recruit more people to participate. Now, you must be thinking, okay, I get it. So, where does Bitcoin come into all that story? Those who say that Bitcoin is a Ponzi or a pyramid scheme actually have no idea what they're talking about. Or even worse, they have been tricked by true scammers who are using the word Bitcoin to promote some kind of a scheme. Besides, there is also some incredulity because of the amount of appreciation of Bitcoin over a short period of time. The spectacular profit of the first years of Bitcoin probably made some critics associate these amazing gains of Bitcoin with fraudulent schemes. Now, the truth, however, is that Bitcoin does precisely the opposite. Bitcoin is helping people and even whole countries. Bitcoin has its fundamentals in liberal economic theories, as we already talked about in the previous episodes of the Money Arata series. That is why many people who are against liberal ideas, they end up attacking Bitcoin, saying that it feeds greed. It is nothing more but a fraud that is made to steal your money. It is similar to Ponzi or pyramid schemes. However, those who are truly concerned about exclusion, social equality, and monetary injustice, actually they should be Bitcoin's fiercest defenders. Bitcoin is a revolutionary asset that is giving people control over their own money. It is freeing people from having their money manipulated, confiscated, or controlled by governments that only want to impose an ideology or simply steal your money and create more and more taxes. Governing authorities are not able to do that with Bitcoin because it is a decentralized asset. There is no organization or group of people meeting behind closed doors to decide the future of your money. With Bitcoin, you can instantly transfer your money at very low fees, even more so if you use the Lightning Network, anywhere in the world without having to explain what you're going to be doing with that. Now, think about that. Whenever a government devalues your money and raises inflation rates, it is stealing from you. Inflation is a process that diminishes your lifelong savings. And in certain countries, you can even have your money confiscated or withheld, frozen. This has happened in Brazil, Argentina, Cyprus, China, and many other countries. Therefore, there is great demand and interest in Bitcoin in countries with hyperinflation and political crisis. Families can save themselves by exchanging years' worth of savings for Bitcoins, thus protecting themselves from inflation and confiscation by governments, terrorists, and criminals. Do you want a practical example? In 2021, El Salvador created a law that established Bitcoin as legal tender in the country, and this decision alone saved hundreds of millions of dollars for the local population that received money from family members working abroad. See, before Bitcoin, those international exchanges were made through intermediary companies that charged ridiculous fees for the Salvadorians to receive money from abroad. For example, Western Union and MoneyGram. Even if you don't receive money from family members who work abroad, and even if you do not live in a country with hyperinflation, there is still another problem that affects people worldwide. Interest rates are getting lower every day. And what is the consequence? This means that the governments do not want you to be a saver. They don't want you to save money. A recent example that was a very controversial statement of the European Central Bank was defending negative interests, which meant clearly defending borrowers and going against savers. In a world with low interest rates, your money that you saved will not yield, will not give you more profit from your investments, from your savings, compared to how much you lose with inflation. You will basically start losing your purchasing power over time. In other words, no matter where you live today, Bitcoin will certainly have advantages for you and will help you to have more control over your money. If you want more equality, defend Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme because there is no scammer pretending to give you something that does not exist. When you have custody of your own keys, that is, when your Bitcoins are stored in your own wallet. Could be a hot wallet, which is an app with internet access, or a cold wallet, a device that is even more secure, that keeps your keys offline. Then you are the true owner of your Bitcoin. Now, you should be really careful about Ponzi schemes that are using the word Bitcoin with malicious intent to be recruiting people. You can buy your Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer way directly from an exchange, or even provide your services and ask your clients to pay you in Bitcoin. However, if you realize that you have just been recruited and then you need to be recruiting other people in some type of a scheme, be careful because it could very much be a fraud. Bitcoin is simply money. It is private, decentralized money with clear rules that are known by everyone. It is a means of exchange. You can do purchases with that, and you can also use it as a way to store your value in the future. It is a credit and debt system. So if you want to be on the right side of history, don't make false arguments if you want to criticize Bitcoin. Of course, you can use rational ways to criticize Bitcoin. However, pointing fingers and calling it a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid fraud, it just indicates ignorance. Instead of that, try to find more about Bitcoin. Try to learn how it is helping people to keep your purchasing power protected against inflation and being confiscated. Besides, Bitcoin is also helping whole countries to promote more social inclusion in a financial market. Many people criticize Bitcoin as some type of a Ponzi scheme or pyramid scheme. However, anyone with basic knowledge about the fraudulent schemes and Bitcoin will know that this kind of accusation doesn't make any sense unless you are being recruited by some scammers who are using the word Bitcoin with malicious intent to be tricking people. If you are against the liberal ideology that underpins Bitcoin, try to find more about how Bitcoin is actually helping people to save their lives and even help whole countries by fighting against banking exclusion, excessive taxation, and the abuse of government power over people's money. A good way to starting to learn more about Bitcoin is by taking our Diamond Hands training, which you can see right now by visiting the link arata.se/diamondhands.